Right now, Taiwan is secretly preparing for a complete nightmare scenario. An attack where China doesn't fire a single missile or send a single warship, but instead deploys an invisible electronic weapon that can permanently blind 99% of the island's internet and defense networks in less than 60 seconds. This is not a future threat. In 2026, Beijing has officially unleashed a shadow operation that is already happening right now beneath the waves. In March 2026, a top-secret testimony delivered by former Taiwanese legislator Jason Hu before the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission exposed a terrifying invisible vulnerability. Cutting just 3 primary undersea cable clusters could instantly sever 99% of Taiwan's external internet and military bandwidth, plunging the island into absolute silence. For years, Western military analysts anticipated that Beijing's invasion of Taiwan would begin with a roaring barrage of ballistic missiles and a massive amphibious naval blockade. But the geopolitical chessboard of 2026 has completely changed, revealing a far more insidious gray zone campaign that is happening right now beneath the waves. China has officially unleashed a deniable electronic operation known to intelligence agencies as the signal swarm tactic. By intentionally flooding strategic maritime waterways with hundreds of vessels broadcasting falsified radar data, Beijing is creating a digital fog of sea designed to mask the movements of specialized military ships. Under the cover of this artificial electronic chaos, a newly engineered Chinese deep-sea cable-cutting submersible is silently locating and severing the vital lines that connect Taiwan to the democratic world. It is an invisible war for the control of digital infrastructure, where the ultimate objective is absolute isolation. Welcome back to Trench Waters. To comprehend the terrifying elegance of this shadow operations strategy, one must examine the critical dependencies that keep a modern nation alive. Taiwan is the technological crown jewel of the global economy, manufacturing over 90% of the world's advanced semiconductors. Yet despite its immense economic power and advanced domestic defenses, the entire island relies on a surprisingly fragile network of just over 10 critical undersea fiber-optic cables landing on its vulnerable coastlines. These subsea communication lines are the literal nervous system of Taiwan's defense network, linking its command bunkers directly to U.S. military intelligence networks in Japan, the Philippines, and Washington. If these cables are severed, Taipei loses its ability to coordinate with its Western allies, its financial markets freeze instantly, and its domestic air defense radars lose real-time satellite data integration. Beijing has realized that they do not need to drop a single bomb on Taipei to achieve complete strategic capitulation. They simply need to cut the cords. However, executing a targeted, intentional campaign of international sabotage carries immense geopolitical risks. If a Chinese Navy vessel were caught openly cutting a multinational communication cable, it could be classified as an act of war, triggering immediate economic sanctions or direct intervention by the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet. This is where the brilliant and deceptive strategy of the signal swarm comes into play. Under international maritime regulations, every commercial vessel, bulk carrier, and fishing trawler must continuously broadcast its GPS coordinates, speed, and heading through the Automatic Identification System, or AIS, to prevent collisions in crowded shipping lanes. China's People's Liberation Army Navy has effectively weaponized this standard safety system. They have deployed hundreds of maritime militia vessels, commercial tugs, and automated decoys into the narrow Taiwan Strait, intentionally programming them to spoof, scramble, and flood the digital tracking networks with thousands of overlapping false transponder signals. This massive injection of corrupted data creates an impenetrable wall of digital noise on the radar screens of international maritime monitors and Western intelligence satellites. To the outside world, the Taiwan Strait appears as a chaotic, densely packed cluster of standard commercial traffic. But hidden deep within this engineered fog of sea is China's true offensive asset, the specialized deep-sea research and surveillance vessel Haiyang Dizhi 2. Shielded by the electronic noise of the signal swarms, this vessel can maneuver directly over Taiwan's critical undersea infrastructure without raising immediate red flags. The international community is left entirely blind to the impending threat until the localized data blackouts have already begun, leaving Western observers incapable of proving whether a cable disruption was an intentional act of state aggression or a mere maritime accident. Resting on the ocean floor, these vital communication lines face an existential threat from Beijing's newest, heavily classified maritime asset, a hyper-engineered, deep-sea cable-cutting submersible vessel. This specialized craft is designed with one singular dark purpose: to descend to extreme depths, locate subsea telecommunication lines, and utilize high-powered hydraulic robotic cutters to cleanly sever the fiber-optic arrays. The precision of these robotic cuts is deliberately calculated to mimic the natural wear and tear caused by commercial ship anchors dragging along the seabed or localized underwater earthquakes. Whenever a critical line drops offline, Beijing's state media immediately deploys a sophisticated counter-narrative, publicly attributing the damage to standard maritime incidents, tectonic shifts, or irresponsible civilian fishing crews, while mocking the Taiwanese authorities for overreacting to routine occurrences. This calculated strategy of plausible deniability places Taiwan's Ministry of Digital Affairs in an incredibly desperate position. Even when Taiwanese maritime intelligence strongly suspects intentional Chinese involvement, the lack of definitive, uncorrupted data from the spoofed radar networks makes international legal attribution nearly impossible. Furthermore, subsea cable repairs are a slow, painstaking process that relies heavily on a limited global fleet of specialized civilian cable repair ships. By creating a persistent, hostile environment within the Taiwan Strait, Beijing can effectively deter international repair crews from entering the contested waters to fix the severed lines, turning a temporary communications glitch into a permanent state of strategic isolation. What makes this subsea siege exceptionally perilous is that traditional military power offers no immediate remedy. The US Navy's 7th Fleet, despite its unparalleled surface-to-air defenses and carrier strike groups, cannot police thousands of kilometers of dark, mud-slicked seabed beneath the Taiwan Strait. Anti-submarine warfare is optimized to track massive metal hulls and nuclear propulsion systems, not small, silently drifting civilian-looking vessels deployed specifically to deploy low-profile submersibles. When an undersea cable goes cold, there is no thermal signature, no radar spike, and no dramatic explosion. There is only a silent drop in a data pipeline. This asymmetric nature of subsea warfare shifts all tactical advantage to the aggressor. China can continuously probe, test, and fracture Taiwan's digital vulnerabilities while remaining completely immune to traditional defensive retaliation. In response to this growing existential threat, Taipei has quietly entered a state of heightened emergency, launching a series of desperate countermeasures to fortify its digital resilience. The government has recently elevated its 10 primary undersea cables to the status of critical national defense infrastructures, unlocking massive security funding and deeply embedding cable protection into its broader military doctrine. Furthermore, Taiwan is rapidly expanding its investments in low Earth orbit satellite technology, partnering with international providers like Eutelsat OneWeb to establish a vital backup communication network. However, as military experts openly warn, satellite constellations provide an incredibly narrow bandwidth compared to the massive data streams carried by subsea fiber optics. While satellites can maintain basic government and military communications during a crisis, they are utterly incapable of supporting the vast digital infrastructure required to sustain a modern economy or a full-scale defensive war. The financial and industrial fallout of this silent blockade would instantly reverberate across the global economy. If Taiwan's connection to the global internet is completely severed, its semiconductor foundries, managed by giants like TSMC, would instantly lose connection to their global client networks. Orders from Apple, Nvidia, AMD, and Intel would hang in limbo. Without real-time data sync, the highly automated supply chain networks that move microchips from fabrication plants onto international container flights would freeze entirely. The tech sector would enter a sudden, massive supply shock that would halt manufacturing lines from Silicon Valley to Tokyo, costing the global economy trillions of dollars within the first 72 hours of the digital blackout. The broader implications of China's signal swarm doctrine extend far beyond the borders of Taiwan. Security analysts at the Pentagon are growing deeply concerned that Beijing is using the Taiwan Strait as a live testing ground for a strategy meant to be deployed globally. The United States, Europe, and Japan are equally dependent on highly concentrated clusters of subsea cables resting in heavily contested maritime choke points like the South China Sea, the Luzon Strait, and the Baltic Sea. If China successfully perfects the art of deniable coordinated subsea infrastructure sabotage through electronic cloaking, they will possess the ultimate tool of geopolitical coercion. They can selectively blind Western networks, freeze global banking systems, and paralyze military command structures at will, all while maintaining absolute diplomatic deniability on the world stage. This operational methodology represents the ultimate evolution of what military theorists call restricted warfare. In this paradigm, traditional weapons of mass destruction are replaced by systems of mass disruption. The objective is no longer to conquer territory through sheer physical destruction, but to degrade the enemy's psychological resolve and technical capability to the point where resistance becomes logistically impossible. By severing Taiwan's digital lifelines while keeping the physical island completely intact, Beijing can create a profound sense of isolation and despair among the civilian population. Citizens would wake up to empty phone screens, frozen banking systems, and zero updates from the outside world, creating an internal panic far more destructive than any conventional bombing campaign. As the months of 2026 progress, the true nature of modern warfare is being laid bare. The decisive battles of the 21st century are not being fought with massive naval broadsides or theatrical air combat. They are being fought in the dark, silent depths of the ocean floor, hidden beneath a manufactured cloud of corrupted digital data. The nation that can successfully command the shadows of the seabed and master the art of the signal swarms will ultimately control the flow of global power. The digital cord is being cut, the fog of sea is rolling in, and the rules of international conflict have been rewritten forever. This has been another deep dive investigation by Trench Waters. If you want the unfiltered truth behind the world's hidden military operations, black ops logistics, and shadow warfare grids, subscribe to Trench Waters right now, hit the bell icon, and never miss our next investigation. Until next time, stay vigilant.